Have you ever stopped to think about how much stories actually shape your world? I mean, really shape it. That's the huge idea we're diving into today from Thomas King's amazing book, The Truth About Stories. He basically argues that stories aren't just for fun. They are the very fabric of our reality.
So let's get right to the heart of it. King's core idea is this, right here. The truth about stories is that that's all we are. What he's saying is that everything about us, our identities, our cultures, how we see everything, it's all built from the stories we tell and the stories we're told. We don't just hear them, we literally become them.
And we're not just talking about fairy tales or novels here. No, think bigger. Think about the stories your family tells, the myths a nation is built on, even the story you tell yourself about who you are. According to King, these are the blueprints for our entire lives. They dictate how we see the world and our place in it.
But here's the catch. This power is a total double-edged sword. On one hand, stories can be these wondrous, beautiful things that connect us and open up new worlds. But on the other hand, they can be incredibly dangerous. They can be used to control people, to box them in, and to chain us to the past.
King has this really brilliant way of showing us how this works. He puts two foundational creation stories side by side, the biblical story of Genesis and the native story of the woman who fell from the sky. And these aren't just ancient tales. They represent two completely different ways of being in the world.
So on one side you have Genesis. It's a universe built on a strict hierarchy, right? A top-down power structure. But then you have the other story, a universe built on cooperation and balance. Power isn't held by one being. It's shared among everyone and everything. You can see how these two stories create two totally different blueprints for how to live.
And these blueprints have real-world consequences. King suggests that the hierarchical story, the one that's been so dominant in Western culture, well, it tends to create a society built on competition. It encourages self-interest and this black and white, good versus evil way of thinking.
The cooperative story, though, it offers something completely different, a world built on relationships, on balance. It gives us a way to imagine a world where meaning comes from connection, not from conflict. It's a pretty radical idea when you think about it.
Okay, so this is where it gets really critical. What happens when one of these stories, that hierarchical, competitive one, becomes the story? What happens when it starts to define not just a worldview, but actual people?
This is where the danger becomes so personal. For native peoples, King explains, the dominance of that Western story creates this impossible trap of authenticity. To be seen as real, they're pressured to fit into stereotypes that the dominant culture imagined for them.
Think about what that means for a second. It creates this huge gap between the lived, modern reality of Native people and this romanticized historical image that exists in pop culture. So if a Native person doesn't fit that old stereotype, they're often seen as less authentic, less real. It's an impossible situation. So what does happen when one story just takes over everything else? Well, a single story doesn't just simplify things, it can erase them. It can flatten the vibrant, complex, multicultural reality of an entire people into one flat and often totally false image.
But it's not all doom and gloom, not at all. King points us toward a powerful solution, a beautiful mosaic of new voices. There's a whole new generation of storytellers who are actively taking apart that old dominant narrative.
I mean, look at this incredible wave of Native authors King celebrates. They're not telling one single story. No way. They're weaving this rich, complicated, vibrant tapestry of modern Native life. Each one adds their own unique thread, creating a picture that's so much more authentic and alive.
And here's the real magic in all of this. These writers aren't just telling stories about Native identity for Native people. They're drawing on their own unique ways of seeing the world to give all of us completely new paradigms, new ways of understanding everything. And that is an incredible gift.
All right, this brings us to the final and honestly the most powerful part of King's message. After he's shown us how stories work and how new ones are bubbling up, he turns the spotlight right back on us, on you.
This is it. This is the ultimate takeaway, the meta-narrative power that we can apply to our own lives. If you're not happy with the world, with your community, with your relationships, King says the answer isn't just to act differently. First, you have to choose to live by a different story.
He actually ends his chapters with this phrase over and over again. He doesn't just tell you a story, he hands it to you. He makes you responsible for it. Suddenly, you're not just a passive listener anymore. You're the keeper of the story, and you have to decide what happens next.
And with this line, wow, he just masterfully takes away all our excuses. He's basically saying, you can't claim you didn't know. The possibility of a different way of being, of living by a new story, has been laid right at your feet.
It's kind of chilling, isn't it? Just 3 little words. You've heard it now. And with that, the responsibility is sealed. The knowledge is yours. The stories are yours. And what you do with them, the kind of world you decide to create, is now completely 100% up to you. And so that's the final provocative thought he leaves us with. It's more than a summary. It's a direct challenge. He's asking you to look at your own life, your own community. What are the stories that are defining your reality? And now that you know you have a choice, which stories will you choose to tell next?